When you look at companies that are run well and things that can endure, it's because really smart, interesting, creative people have enough say to sort of make the right decisions when it counts. And I think that's something that Facebook has always gotten right. And I think it's allowed it to attract really great people, and I think it's what will probably allow it to be a really great company for a long time.
Everyone asks me, because this is like the topic du jour, it's what everyone wants to know. It's like, what was the secret? It's like almost as if like, you know, we're the NSA and we've like developed something and like nobody knows. It's like none of that shit. We did 3 really obvious brain dead things, and the reality was we lacked enough self-awareness and ego to frankly just continue to do these very simple things over and over and over again, repetitively, monotonously, to a point where every time we used to see things move in one direction or another, we would either keep doing them or stop doing them and not second guess ourselves.
You know, when I left Facebook, the biggest thing that I realized was, wow, we've built a lot of this really interesting plumbing for the internet, right? This next phase of highly decentralized, largely social products. What I was really interested in was pushing the boundaries beyond what was traditional. So, you know, most people, when they think about social stuff, were thinking about games and other very obvious categories.
Right.
I was asking the question, well, how do the new rules of the internet change and reshape how, you know, for example, the healthcare industry works, or how we learn and how education works, which tend to be very kind of like big, hairy areas that traditionally internet people don't spend time in.
Right.
But I thought the rules had changed enough where it was possible, and at the same time, we as a society kind of need to fix those areas if we're going to thrive.
And so I kind of tell people, you know, look, we actually just looked at a lot of data, we measured a lot of stuff, we tested a lot of stuff, and we tried a lot of stuff. Now, that masks over a lot of more nuanced understanding, but at an extremely high level, that's really what we did. And what's shocking to me is when I see like a lot of products out there, it's unbelievable to me that people are trying to shroud products in this veneer of complexity that makes themselves seem like so good and so smart, and you know, you gotta get over yourself. Like, measure some shit, try some shit, test some more shit, throw the stuff that doesn't work. It's not that complicated. And I see app after app after app, and I get inundated. And when I download it and I try it, I'm like, did you even spend 8 seconds using your own product? It's unbelievable the lack of dogfooding that happens. And so most people, when they think about growth, they think it's this convoluted thing where you're trying to generate these, you know, extra normal behaviors in people. And that's not what it's about. What it's about is a very simple, elegant understanding of product value and consumer behavior. And when you shroud yourself in all the bullshit veneer, and this is the single biggest problem in the Valley today, you will miss the mark.
I'm interested in change. I'm basically convinced that people right now who are in positions of power are there for completely the wrong reasons and shouldn't be. And in my opinion, when you empower individual people to make decisions, they tend to make more coherent decisions and they tend to make better decisions.
Talk about core product value at Facebook. One of the key things that it got right, or it understood, was the connectivity around you being able to associate your friends in social situations. And the simplest manifestation of that was in photos. And so when we launched our photo feature, it literally was just explosive growth. And so here it is, where in many ways it is the atomic unit of how Facebook gets organized. As much as people are an atomic unit, it's almost even more important in the sense that it's even more elemental.
Revolution starts in evolution. So you could have the biggest, craziest, audacious idea in the world, but unless you can put one foot in front of the other and make that first step, you're screwed and none of it matters. All of that crap washes out in the end. Because if you suck, you suck. What matters there is, again, it's just that ability to understand what that first specific set of things need to be, with that broader, bigger goal in mind. But if you can't put your first foot in front of the other, and you know what's amazing? Most people can't, because they get wrapped up in the rhetoric of the vision and the mission and all of this, you know, grandiose, you know, blobbity-blying, that they screw up, and they're their own worst enemies.
It takes a really special type of person to not believe the bullshit, and an even more special person to not conflate luck and skill. you have to be relatively cynical. You can be confident. Fuck, you can be arrogant. It doesn't really matter. But you can't believe your own BS. Because when you do, you start to compound these massively structural mistakes that, again, don't expose core product value and then don't allow real engagement and real product value to emerge. You don't listen to consumers because you think it's all about your gut. You don't bother doing any of the traditional, straightforward, obvious things that would allow you to answer very straightforward, obvious questions.
There's as much, if not more, luck than there is skill. Timing, the right technology decisions at the right time, a few of critical hires at the right time, a few critical features at the right time. And frankly, you can have a substandard group of people get those things right and beat what is on paper a tremendously better group of people, right, who didn't make those decisions.
Right.
So what you're really trying to figure out, in my opinion, is how does their mind work? Are they scrappy enough? Are they listening? Are they cynical enough to push back? And those characteristics are hard to define. And I think they're manifested in wildly varying ways. What I'm trying to figure out is whether those things exist. And can I plant enough seeds where the intellectual curiosity of the person will guide the decision, as opposed to some great rhetoric that I may spew and then they just blindly run into a brick wall because that's what they think I told them to do.
After all the testing, all the iterating, all of this stuff, you know what the single biggest thing we realized? Get any individual to 7 friends in 10 days. That was it. You want a keystone? That was our keystone. There was not much more complexity than that. There's an entire team now, hundreds of people that have helped ramp this product to 1 billion users based on that one simple rule. So if you were looking for a lot of complexity, I couldn't give it to you. But we were able to reframe the entire experience around that one simple premise of what it was to both capture core product value, to define what it meant to be able to onboard into a product that allowed you to communicate, to get into a network, to find density, and then to basically iterate around that.
I think a lot of people have these frameworks that they use and very rigidly live within these frameworks. The founder has to be technical.
Right.
Or the founder has to be between this age and that age. Or the founder, and so you develop all of these rules mostly based on the historic look back of what's worked before. What I think that basically eliminates is this idea that most people have the ability to be brilliant at something.
Don't give me these low-level abstractions that allow you to validate get short-term results in ROI that don't mean anything. Don't focus on things that destroy long-term value. Don't give me stuff that allows you to trick yourself into thinking you know what you're talking about. I'd rather you say you don't know, and I'd rather us figure stuff out together. What I don't want to have happen is a culture where you take these short-term things, you start working on it in the absence of context, and you have these meteoric rises, and what you have is massive churn and fall off, and everyone's looking around with their hands in their pockets thinking, well, what just happened? I thought I was doing a really great job. You're not doing a really great job. You optimize the variable. So you destroy a lot of value when you abstract away that high-level goal to something so ridiculously stupid.
You have to be humble enough to realize, timing is everything. People are everything, right? The team, the conditions, your competitors, so many things came into making something work.
Right.
At that time, it's not so replicable. Similarly, failing, if you failed for the right reasons, that could be great DNA to go again and try it again.
But we were able to reframe the entire experience around that one simple premise. A very simple, elegant statement of what it was to both capture core product value, to define what it meant to be able to onboard into a product that allowed you to communicate, to get into a network, to find density, and then to basically iterate around that.
When companies work, the biggest thing that happens is you revert to the mean. And what I mean by that is the mean is every crappy company out there. And so the real question that I was asking myself at Facebook was, what happens and how do companies end up in this situation? And my realization is every company gets there eventually. But that last word is the most important. The challenge of a senior executive team is to prevent that regression to the mean. And culture is the only thing that does that. And so I would always speak to all of the people that we hired every Monday Part of it was to scare the living shit out of them, but part of it was to, be unapologetic about a culture that valued transparency, openness, authenticity, and value over perception. So it's not about politicking, it's not about managing up, it's about doing good stuff. And that the engineer that could be the most junior person has as much or more power than me. And that's an awesome dynamic, right? Because it allows the smart people who are capable to do the right things.
But when you understand core product value, and then you can basically pivot around it and create these loops that expose that over and over and over again, this becomes the most important and obvious thing to do. And in the few companies that I help now with this context, when they do that, and when it's the CEO or when it's the co-founder who are living in that world and living in this context, they've consistently, systematically, every single one has been successful. Every single one of them. It's really easy to kind of, focus on short-term results. I just don't think there's enough of the long-term thinking, being able to take some arrows along the way in the short term because you're trying to build something for the long term. And having a culture and set of values where that's rewarded. Perfect example of this is LinkedIn. Built over 10 years, 11 years of just working. Friendster comes out of nowhere. Reed didn't panic. MySpace comes out of nowhere. Reed didn't panic. Facebook came out of nowhere. He didn't panic. Just built a great product. Just kept working and working. Did not take the short, easy way out. And you have to respect that because when those guys win, they win. And they win in scale and they win for a long time.
Having the courage to be yourself, healthy skepticism and cynicism. Do not develop a sense of idolatry around any individual person. Don't read the blogs, don't read Twitter. All of that stuff, again, is a whole amount of self-reinforcing rhetoric and promotional propaganda that can be informative, but needs to be balanced with your own internal sense of what you want to do, how you want to do it. That's the most important.
For all the CEOs here, all of you people should be writing this down. This is how you should recruit. It worked for us. I give this to every single company I invest in. It works for most of them. A very high IQ, self-explanatory. A strong sense of purpose are people that will not buckle under short-term pressure. A relentless focus on success, just so competitive that you will do whatever it takes to win. Aggressive and competitive people who always respect the person but constantly challenge the idea. A high quality bar that borders on perfectionism, just nothing is ever good. You win, something improves by 10 basis points, now it needs to improve by 20 basis points, now it needs to improve by 1%. That kind of living in that world is just a really great dynamic. People who are comfortable taking something that works and saying it doesn't work here and let's just reset and start again. You have to be willing to take yourself out of your own biases and find people who are willing to come up with things that, again, are unconventional. Another reason why you can't live in the bubble that is the valley. There are too many problems and too many products that are focused on solving the needs of the 1% of the 1% that live here.
The most important thing that we did right at Facebook was we had a very decentralized, bottom-up philosophy of how things should work. When you look at companies that are run well and things that can endure, it's because really smart, interesting, creative people that aren't necessarily, in positions of senior management have enough say to sort of make the right decisions when it counts. And I think that's something that Facebook has always gotten right. And I think it's allowed it to attract really great people. And I think it's what will probably allow it to be a really great company for a long time.